All right, Shalom. I want to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to you. How about Shemal Shah by Shema Kakwadash? Double honors to the apostle and elders, great millstone. Shalom to all the Akim out there pushing the word of sincerity and the truth. Yeah, I just want to do this lesson in regards to America. We seeing this society dwindling. You know, a lot of people are on social media, just trying to stay under the banner of entertainment, bread and circus, which when Rome was on its decline, bread and circus is what occupied the minds of the people and kept the society prevalent. The purchasing power of the Roman society, just being filled with entertainment and indulging in decadence, even though it was a gradual decline. And we're seeing the same thing take place here in America. A lot of people are, like I said, their minds are fully filled with the fluff of this world when America is on a great decline, and a lot of people are losing it, on a constant, seems like every other shit, really every day. You hear about either a shooting or suicide, something very tragic that's taking place all throughout the states. I just heard earlier today an individual got shot 4 times in the head. All these arguments taking place and, misunderstanding. People don't have rational thinking. They're stressed out. Bills is high as hell. So a lot of these Americans are ticking time bombs, and they don't know how to deal with reasoning. That's why the scripture says to deliver us from unreasonable men and women for that nature, because these women are just as, if not more, unreasonable than these men. And American decline is a thing you see on Wikipedia. It says American decline is the idea that the United States is diminishing in power on a relative basis, geopolitically, militarily, financially, economically, and technologically. It can also refer to absolute declines demographically, socially, morally, spiritually, culturally, in a matter of healthcare and on environmental issues. There has been debate over the extent of the decline and whether it is relative or absolute. So you have spending most of it steel making. Oh, this is a steel industry in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Looked like it went bankrupt. And you seeing these companies going bankrupt. You just see the what was it? The airline Spirit just went out of business. A lot of these individuals are losing their jobs. It's difficult as hell to get a job, and even when you get a job that's beneficial, that can keep up with the steady increase of these bills. So like I said, you shacking up. You gotta live damn near like a third world citizen in this country. Some people do better than others, but nonetheless, this is hell. This is this is the land of our captivity. And a lot of people, they try to avoid the facts when it's written right in their face. Until it hits them directly. Now they're feeling it. Now they're in this state of depression. Now they're on all kind of different drugs to cope with the society. Losing family members or siblings and stuff like that, and not having the and we all lose when it comes to that aspect. But a lot of people are losing their mind, rather than holding it together. A lot of people have this crash out energy, one situation, to just blow everything out, and America is the society that has that recipe to make you do so. That's why in these times we have to be extremely spiritual. You got to be, reserved, not being too loose, allowing your mind to be broken down. We have to keep a spiritually protective hedge around ourselves and move keenly. The scripture says, be sober, be vigilant, not being too emotionally flustered, because these people, this is the wild, wild west, man. I said that these niggas, these fucking, it's certain sides of town you really shouldn't have no, really ain't got no business being on, because it's nothing but problems when it comes to it's certain parts of the city you won't even see me at. I ain't got no business over there, certain places that's dilapidated. You already know, even certain, just even going out, sometimes I might go out for a drink or two, like we all do, but I'm very selective, of where I go and even how late I stay out. I ain't trying to be in these spots no fucking 4 or 5 in the morning getting destroyed with these fucking heathens, man. The scripture says that we got to move, walk as children of the day, man. The scripture speak about also revelings, in these wild, outrageous areas, because it gets dangerous, man. And we can all play the role of a tough guy and feel like this stuff don't touch us until, like I said, till it hits home, and then next thing you know, your mind is shattered. So none of us want to learn the hard way. We want to think and observe. Scripture says, observing the times, redeeming the times as well, because the days are evil. Psalms 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Yeah, so we're comforted by the scripts. Yeah, how about Shema Shah is walking with us. We don't have impaired thinking. The Lord has our mind wrapped tight through the Spirit, to know how to operate within the parameters of the society, man. And sometimes you might do things impulsive, or you might make young mistakes. The scripture says that a righteous man fall of 7 times, but 9 days, sometimes you don't want to slip at all, because one slip can be extremely fatal, depending on the circumstances or the situation that takes place. This place is like fucking spider webs. You get caught up in something, and just think about a felony, or now you can't even work certain jobs. You gotta have it's difficult as hell to already make money. The little bit of money that you do make, you gotta cipher it around all these. You gotta cipher it through these bills. Then you leave you with a couple of peanuts, and you gotta make that work. And don't miss work, or you get late, they ready to throw you out. So yeah, well, this is the time. Of course, always been a time, but time to use a lot more wisdom, because as we see in the society fall, like I said, the morals, the spiritual, that's part of the decline too. Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, the minds of the people are just going through its waning, and people are looking for a reason to be a nigga or a demon or a ghoul or a goblin, whatever you want to call it, man. So we just have to keep our minds, reserved, like I said before, be have a high level of self-possession, not being emotionally triggered, emotional as well as spiritually sound. You want to be emotionally sound, so that you don't get caught up. And I'm gonna end it with this. I'm gonna have to cook and get myself together. Savages, and I gotta get ready for work. 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. So yeah, he's on a prowl, looking for the simple, the naive, and none of us, like I said, none of us want to get caught. So we have to play the safe zone. When this ain't the time to be these niggas talking about I'm the crash shut out. I don't give a fuck. We do. We regard we consider. We got to use wisdom, So with that, I'm gonna end it by giving all praise and honor and glory to Yahweh Shema Shai, by Shemar Kakodash. Double honor to the apostle, elders, a great millstone. Shalom Akim.